Hello and welcome to the Live by Heart Today show number 64. This is a show designed to help you navigate change, uncertainty, and the world we found ourselves in. We'll talk a little bit about science, a little bit about how our body works, a little bit about intuition, and we'll talk a lot about transformation.
Streaming from Retro Earth Studio and brought to you by
Learn to play jazz piano like a pro, by a pro, with Jazz Piano Pro Essentials at jazzpianopro.com.
And wearehistorically.com, conscious human apparel. It's time for the next episode of Live by Heart
Today.
I'm Dawn Spiegelberg, medical intuitive and coherence coach. We're focusing on rebirth, and today's theme is Free the Mind. With me for today's Heart to Heart is my co-host, Wendy R. Wolf, professional transformation facilitator. Welcome, Wendy.
Hi, Dawn. Thank you so much. This is an awesome topic, this Free the Mind. It's going to be a lot to fit in one show. So do you want to start? What are you thinking?
So last show, we talked a little bit about a story and being patient and waiting for an answer. Mm-hmm. And it's our mind that is impatient. Yeah. It is that desire. And the show before that, we talked about aversion and desire. Mm-hmm. And all of these come from our thinking. Yeah. They arise from our thoughts. And I love the Eckhart Tolle quote where he says, and I'm going to butcher it, he says, everybody spends so much time thinking they don't realize they're suffering from it.
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's the point. Go ahead.
Yeah. So it's our mind. It's our mind really that runs away with us. And so one question I have, and we can spend time talking about it, but I want people to think about when you have a thought in your mind, when you're speaking to yourself, when you drop your keys and you say, oh, that was so stupid, something like that, right? Or when we do something great and the cake turns out perfectly and you taste it and you say, oh, I did such a great job. The question is, who are you talking to?
Yes. Who's the I?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's very central to a lot of meditation, of finding like the self behind the thoughts, behind the feelings, behind the running around. Mm-hmm. What's really going on under there? Constant, eternal unveiling. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Beautiful.
I've been really spending some time thinking about the Thomas Young experiment from 1801. I've mentioned it to you before. It's the double slit experiment, which from that experiment came what scientists call the observer effect. Mm-hmm. And the observer effect essentially is when we look at something, when we pay attention to it changes. There's a fundamental change. And of course, the scientists don't know why necessarily, and they've added it to quantum physics and the study of quantum theory. Mm-hmm. And I truly believe it's because our mind is designed to compare, contrast, measure, and that can be categorized as judge.
Oh, yeah.
It's designed to do that. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about freeing the mind, the question I asked was, who are you talking to? And then secondly, what is that mind doing? Because it's designed to judge and compare and contrast. Mm-hmm. So are you allowing it to do what it's designed to do? Mm-hmm. Or can it sit in the backseat? Is it driving your car, or is it just providing input and you get to make the decision on your own?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like this is one of the essential things in most people's soul journey is to start to disambiguate self from thought, especially in our country. I don't know about the world, but in our country, there's like a marrying, like a non-distinguishing between the thoughts and the self. And I found the more that I distinguish them, then I can change things, because there's a lot going on there. There's the actual intellectual energy.
Mm-hmm.
There's the stories. There's the beliefs, which are kind of story. Like there's a whole lot going on. And if like once I disambiguate my own consciousness, myself from those thoughts, I can start to see all these layers of things and to start to address them and start to shift them. So as I moved off invalidation, I had so much less negative self-talk.
Yes.
It just started to fall away.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not who I am. And it's not what I do anymore. I do what I used to do. I was really hard on myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I was hard on others. I'd be like, rah, 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 you did it wrong when you drove, why'd you cut me off, and then eventually I'm just like, I'm singing my song, they'll get out of the way, like it just doesn't even occur anymore. I don't have to make them wrong. So the mind changes. The mind is trainable. The Bible says, put on the mind of Christ.
Yeah.
And we talked about this, I believe a couple weeks ago about
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're describing in part the work of Viktor Frankl, who came up with logotherapy. And it's, can you separate yourself from what's happening around you and assign a different meaning to situations, or not assign meaning at all?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and that meaning, like that meaning saved his life, and that meaning, he makes a case in Man's Search for Meaning that was a big distinguishing factor between who lived and died.
Yeah.
In the concentration camps, we really need meaning.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to make an aside. He had some lectures that he did about half a year, 3/4 a year after he got out, that have become a book that I read recently. It came out somewhat recently. I definitely recommend it. I want to say it's like Choose Life, but it's not. It's something like that, though.
Mm-hmm.
Really cool. Yeah.
And choosing life is we talked last time about the man hanging from the vine, and he chose the strawberry.
Yes.
And when we're aware of how close we are to death every moment, that's when we get to choose. When we see, like Castaneda says, death on our shoulder, when we're aware of it, then we can choose living in the now. Then we can put our mind in the back seat rather than allow it to drive.
It certainly encourages me to do that. Like, it doesn't do it for me, but it's like, get with the program, Wendy. Excuse me, I have hiccups.
Hiccup.
Because life. Awesome.
So we're talking about distinguishing ourselves from our thinking.
Yes.
Distinguishing ourselves one step further from our circumstances.
Yeah. Yeah. So can we kind of transition?
Yep.
What I really am excited about talking about in this section today, because we're coming to the end of our rebirth. Yeah. And really, this is all about life, even though we keep talking about death. But in this part, I want to bring up that in this process, we've talked about all semester, all whatever you want to call it, all marking period. Our souls are shifting. We're shifting, and I've talked before about getting the cart behind the horse. And when the cart gets behind the horse, then the horse can just go and things work. And my pictures are that we make change in our soul, which makes room for our mind to change. Our mind can't change before that. Then there's room for our mind to change. Are we willing? It's a really hard thing to change our mind about certain beliefs or experiences that we understand in a certain way, or ways we've always been or known ourselves to be, identity. It's very difficult for most of us humans to allow that conscious change of our mind. But I feel like it is so important. And if we don't, then suffering ensues if we're not willing to let the mind change.
And back to what we discussed a little while ago, Christ said, deny yourself. And I think he was referring to our thoughts. In part.
All those things, all these things that we think are us.
Mm-hmm.
Identity, I think, including our thoughts, beliefs, et cetera, what we tell ourselves, the stories. Yeah. So, and I've said this several times, but say like a year and a half ago, when I was making big soul changes, I was seeing things very differently, how it really is underneath from my perspective. And it took me, and then a year went by, and I still hadn't finished changing my mind.
Mm.
And like, this contextualizes it better than maybe people have heard it before. I wasn't done with my mind upgrading I was doing it, but it was slow because it was so intense. And I gave myself a hard time about it. And then I realized, just let go, drop what is making me suffer. And then once I did, then my mind changed. It was wild. And I was living in a world in which my soul experience was again aligned with my mental belief understanding of the world. But it really takes something sometimes when we change to let our minds catch up.
It does take something. And when you mentioned you gave yourself a hard time, that was the mind giving you a hard time. So it really doesn't want to let go.
No, it should be a certain way. Get with the program. It's like, you're the one not changing. La, 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 la.
Yes, that's the compare, contrast, measure, and meaning it assigns to everything.
Yes. Yeah. And you mentioned, being in the driver's seat and allowing, like, I see the analyzer as in the map seat, in the passenger seat, because it's great at maps and charts and spreadsheets. And if I figure out I want to go to Kentucky, all right, we go this way. Or if we go that way, we can go here. Like a million options. It's like, okay, great, you get on it. It's very, very useful. There's some people who are just like, get rid of your mind. It's like, are you crazy? It's like such a great gift. It's just a matter of not letting it run free. It's like a big dog. Big dogs have to be trained.
Yes.
Or they're a menace to themselves and everyone else.
Yes.
Dogs can get away with it, but our mind's a big dog, and if it's not trained, it can make ourselves and everyone else so miserable.
And there's no way to get rid of it.
There's no way.
I think they've missed that point, right? That you can't do it. It doesn't work unless you do it electrically, which they figured out in the 60s and 70s is detrimental.
Yeah. And so, like, I like to use an illustration, speaking of dogs, that the dogs can be trained, to make it short, that they're not alpha. Dogs who were barking all the time and causing mayhem, it's because they think they're alpha and they think they're responsible for all these things. And once we train the dog that we're alpha, then it can just relax and go with the program. And I believe our mind is very similar, our analyzer. If we're in survival, if we're in fear, if the mind doesn't believe that we're in charge, it's going to want to take charge and control and control and control. But if we, and be so loud barking, but if we're just like, oh, honey, I've got it, Now you worked hard today. We did calculus, we did taxes, go lay down by the fire. I'm going to meditate. It's like tired. It's like, thank you. Later we'll do some Sudoku. Great. Like just go lay down by the fire. We're not killing it. We're not making it bad. It's been good dog, go lay down by the fire. I think that's really helpful.
It is helpful. And one thing you mentioned was when we're threatened, that's when our mind gets turned on. When there's something in our external environment that we've perceived with our eyes or with our ears or we've smelled or we've felt, and it's a threat to us, then our mind goes to work immediately to identify what the threat is. And that's its job. Its job is to help keep us alive.
Yeah.
And when we let it drive the bus, that's when we run into trouble. Mm-hmm. I love that the Buddhists talk about allowing thoughts to arise and then they fall away. And then they're going to arise again and they fall away again. And just allow it to happen like waves on the ocean. Waves come and waves go. They arise and then they recede. And rather than being buffeted by them, to just observe them, which is the neutrality that we discuss frequently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So how's our timing? I wanted to talk about the Mother Teresa thing. Is there time?
Yes.
Okay. I feel like it's a little controversial, but I have a working theory that for me is a really good illustration of when we make a big soul turn, but we don't allow our mind to change. And it may or may not be true. So let's just take it as an example. So Mother Teresa was awesome. And she was called by Jesus to go and really serve the people in the world who needed it the very most. And she didn't want to, but she did. And then she stopped having an experience of Jesus really clearly. And my belief is, having been through something like that, my belief is that she was going through a change in her experience of the divine and her relationship with the divine, but her old belief system had all the old expectations. And there was nothing in that system saying, it's okay, there's a changing face of the divine. It's okay, Jesus will come and go. It's okay. Like, you're just learning. For me, the picture that really helped me when I went through this part is you just went off to college. The parents are still there, the friends are still there, the home is still there, but you're off at college alone to learn to be an adult in this society. That picture really helped me. She didn't get those pictures. So she just was in this vast, almost unending, dark, alone. And still expecting the old pictures, expecting the old relationships spiritually, and operating according to the religion as she understood it till that point. But she was in a new land. And in that new land, it was a new thing. And this is some of the stuff it took me for a few years to work through this, to become comfortable. It took me that much. And I know this part where I was in a new land. And I had some markers to say, okay, this makes sense, but it was still so hard. So like, there's nothing wrong with her and there's nothing wrong with her choices, but her mind didn't change. And she suffered for a long time. She was very clearly very helpful to so many people, but in her own soul, she was suffering. And that's what happens if we make a huge soul change and we don't let our mind change, is suffering. And that's part of why we're talking about this today, because there are a lot of people going through these kinds of things now. We're in big sea change of soul consciousness. So I just want to be one of the people saying, don't be surprised if how you experience the divine shifts markedly. And please be in touch with us if that kind of thing is happening, because we understand it. But the most important thing is that it can happen, and it does happen, and it's good news, not bad.
Yeah, it's definitely a sign of transformation and development, and growth periods can be uncomfortable. And I truly see that situation as an opportunity for her to turn her eyes to God. And it it's interesting when she had developed this relationship with Christ and she felt like he had left, in that barren experience, which amazingly, it makes me wonder if that was her reflection of God. Did she feel that God had abandoned her too? And
I believe she did.
yeah,
And everyone I've ever heard write about it talks about, oh, she was in the dark night of the soul. My theory is she was not. She was past that because she was in a stage where there was extreme fruit coming out in her life. Things were working, things were growing, things were miraculously happening. That is not the experience of the dark night of the soul. I'm sure of this. That is not. It's after the dark night of the soul, we come to a whole new experience of the divine and a whole new capacity to be causal, to act in the world in ways that are like very powerful and really make a difference. That's where she was.
is this what the Buddhists refer to as the emptiness?
I
It
don't know.
kind of sounds
I
like
don't know.
that emptiness, that being in that transitional phase.
Yeah. So it's not the dark night of the soul. It's not miserable of its own accord.
Mm-hmm.
From my perspective, from my experience, but it's a whole new world.
Mm.
It's like upside down world in some ways spiritually, and it really takes some acclimatization. But the joy is there if I get over if I put on the mind of Christ, if I'm willing to have a different mind and understand differently, because God is everywhere. I'm
Yeah.
in God. I am God. There's nothing that isn't God. But that God personality, as I experienced before, is not there anymore.
Mm.
And I still miss that.
Yeah.
But it's so much better. But I get it. Getting over the old is hard, and this occurs differently for everyone. But I just want to say that this is not. Some people will be just like, oh my gosh, it's the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
What did I do? God hates me. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, no. So be able to distinguish this where we are in the process is very helpful. But anyway, the bottom line is if I'm not willing to let go of my old expectations and my old religious patterns and my old concepts of the divine, which, are supposed to burn up in the fire of the dark night of the soul, and the last some get
Mm-hmm.
eaten up on the way out. But there's still some stuff to clean up over here. But attachment still is a temptation.
Yes.
The old mind is still a temptation, the old religion.
And that's the key. It's the mind.
Yeah.
With that beautiful uh, explanation of what may be happening for Mother Teresa during her life, let's take a short break.
Thank you, We Are Historically, for your conscious human apparel. Shop online at wearehistorically.com.
Hello, I'm Dawn Spiegelberg, a heart coherence coach. How do we create happiness in our own life when it seems like there's nothing to be happy about? When the world is crumbling around us, what do we do? What do you do? How can you be happy? How can you connect with what's most important? If you need a happiness adjustment, if you want to learn how to be grateful at any time in your life, contact me today so you can experience heart coherence.
Hello, my name is Wendy R. Wolf, and I'd like to invite you to a new offering. I'm really excited. These workshops are for you. They're for you to go deeper. I know you're busy, so only an hour to go deeper in your soul, learn how to change, learn to find safety and stability within you so that you can leverage change in your life. This is a cultivated coaching zone. We'll be meditating. You'll get feedback. You'll get tools that you can use that'll be yours for the rest of your life. So please mark your calendars for Thursday nights at 5:30 Pacific. Thanks for joining us. I look forward to playing with you.
Hi, I'm Darius Wilrich. I instruct an online video course that teaches anyone how to play jazz piano like a pro with my proven step-by-step system that makes it simple to learn. Jazz Piano Pro Essentials. Enroll today at jazzpianopro.com and download my free quick start guide.
Welcome back to the Live by Heart Today show. We are discussing how to free the mind and how it is so persistent, how it assigns meaning, it compares, it contrasts, and its job is something that we rely on. And it can be overwhelming. It can provide us with an identity that's difficult to shift, which makes growth and development harder. We experience more suffering in that. Wendy, is there something you'd like to wrap up with?
Yeah, it's July 1st. It's, in the United States, we think a lot about freedom these days in the beginning of July. And freedom is something that, I don't know, it seems to me everybody wants, even in our choices, even in our structures, everybody wants it. And one of my favorite verses through all, since I'm a teenager is Galatians 5:1 in the Christian Bible, which is, it's for freedom that Christ set us free. Be not entangled again in the yoke of bondage. And Paul is specifically talking about the law. He's specifically talking about like all the many, many things expected of us. Mm-hmm. But those are all things of the mind. Structures and story and have-tos. And that ties together with today. It's just like we're freeing our mind. We're allowing ourselves to be like, all right, relative to how I experience the world now and how my consciousness is developed, can I allow my understanding of the world and my how I consciously relate to the world line up and not stay back in like when I was, in catechism learning a particular thing. It's like, how does that relate now? I'm not throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Some of that information is still like extraordinarily amazing. Mm-hmm. It's just that I recontextualize it. I understand it at a whole different level, and I let go of it, in ways that I used to hold on to. So we're not saying, throw out your religion necessarily, or throw out your spiritual practice, or throw out, anything. It's a matter of can we add a whole new perspective and integrate?
You're right. When our soul develops, when we have growth and our mind does not also shift, that's when there's resistance. That's when you mentioned suffering happens. Mm-hmm. And I just want to mention that this transition we're talking about is something that you help people with brilliantly. Mm-hmm. It's bringing us back into alignment, our soul with our thinking and with our heart. And of course, the name of our show is Live by Heart, because the heart is so powerful that when we leverage using it, we can live with the benefits of our mind, but without our mind controlling us.
Yes. And you're so good at that. That's, this whole Live by Heart thing is that's you. That's what you bring. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So for those who would like assistance, please feel free to reach out to us, because there is more. There are higher plateaus to reach.
Mm-hmm.
And the mind is conniving. It is really, really sneaky.
Really is. Yes.
Yeah.
Very sneaky.
And it's good to have support to navigate through. It's good to have somebody to help and to bring about unification and wholeness.
Yeah. And if I could, do I have a minute?
Please. Yeah.
There's a tremendous amount of challenge with the mind and with the soul journey, all the way from the time that we in our soul we start to wake up and really have soul experience consciously. There's tumult, and there's 2 dark nights to get through and get out of, and then there's learning to acclimate to something new. And I was just noticing how it's kind of like going through the seasons. Like there's autumn, there's winter, there's spring. It's birth, but it's messy.
Yeah.
It's so messy. There's mud and rain, and it's messy. And birth is the actual birth is messy. We had a show about that. This is all an intense process, and like to get help through these particular times is absolutely normal. It doesn't, and then when it's summer, hooray, it's not like we need help all the time. But some of these turns, it can get a little intense. And so this is part of why I'm talking about it, to normalize it and to have people understand, but also if people need help, reach out to somebody, reach out to us.
Yeah. Get support. Wherever support is beneficial, and whoever the support is that's most beneficial for you.
Yes.
It's out there. Please find it for yourself. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone who's watching today. We'd love to hear from you. So please tell us what's on your heart by leaving a comment below. For more information about how you can live by heart, please go to our website, livebyhearttoday.com. Like and follow this page and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our programs. We're here every Thursday at 4:44 Pacific time. With that said, from our heart to yours, we're creating a better tomorrow because we live by heart today.
And that concludes this portion of
Live by Heart Today!
Thank you for watching. View more episodes on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's give a shout out to our sponsors. Shop online at wearehistorically.com. Conscious Human Apparel.
Hi, I'm Darius Wilrich. I'll teach you everything you need to know about playing jazz piano like a pro with my 12-week online video course and downloadable guidebook, Jazz Piano Pro Essentials. Enroll today at jazzpianopro.com.
Thank you for joining us. Have a happy always.